Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Join hosts Dan Melnick and Qasim Masood as they explore big ideas, limitless possibilities, and engage with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who dare to dream big, get inspired, motivated, and find practical tips for personal growth. Think big, dream bigger, and ignite your potential.
Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. I'm a team filling in for Qasim today, and our guest is Johnny. So, Johnny, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us where you live and what you do for a living.
Yeah, of course. Like I said, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you guys. My name is Johnny Weaver. I recently relocated to Wichita, Kansas from pretty much Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. I am actually an esports project lead, tournament specialist. I do a lot of things in it. I've been in esports 22 years. I started pretty much grassroots back home in around 2000, 2001, played on the Halo circuit for 13 years, retired in 2015, and now I work behind the scenes for DreamHack, TwitchCon. Like I said, he'd still do grassroots stuff. So anywhere between small and big and just babysit nerds all day long.
So how did you get into esports in the first place?
So honestly, growing up, I always had the cool gaming systems, N64, stuff like that. So friends would come over, play GoldenEye, Mario Kart, Smash Bros. And, I'd just beat the crap out of them because I was just good at it. And then as it progressed, I would host events. And then I read about Sundance Giovanni, who created MLG. He had a Halo tournament in his basement, went to New York, got my butt kicked, and I wanted more. And so that's kind of just how it started.
Awesome. So, obviously you've been in the industry for a long time, right? And I know it's changed a lot. So what have you noticed that has changed between from when you first started compared to now, for better or for worse?
Oh, you're good. One of the things I mean, of course, is sponsors. People are taking it more seriously, kind of like when we watch college football, NBA, stuff like that. So it is great to see all these different sources in. The only issue is unless these bigger corporations don't have sponsors, they really don't stay afloat that much. You have to have an affiliation, a sponsor, an investor, something like that. When it's grassroots, like I said, I could say, hey, come play in my tournament. It's $10. I take five goes to prize pool, and it's always funded. And so that's where I feel like a bunch of these major corporations just don't understand, hey, is sponsors, that well dries up after a while. So you need to kind of take what we do in the grassroots area and kind of implement it towards the bigger area.
So in terms of sponsors, so you think that, these platforms like Twitch give folks more opportunities than when you first started?
I think it does at least help them, visualize and see, this is a great talent. Like, for instance, I've known people to get record deals that, they're just some low key, artists just singing on a social media, YouTube, Instagram, whatever. And then they're like, hey, I like you. Let me pick you up. So it is a very good advertising tool. I do wish that these areas would actually pay more for people that are bringing them traffic. You know how that goes. It's pretty much an ROI, return of interest. And so that's the only area that I don't like, is a lot of them take a majority of it, only give a little bit. And in my opinion, I think they should at least give maybe, let's just say 30% out of a full, 100 or maybe 40, something like that. Because again, you're bringing that website or app traffic that they might not have had before because of the star of the show that's on there,
As of right now, what does a typical day look like for you?
Actually, I'm over here talking with my high school coaches. I run the high school scene back home in Oklahoma, so we're getting the season ramped up. I know I can honestly, like I said, leave this conversation. I can get a phone call in 15 minutes to say, hey, you want to go to Vegas? Hey, you want to go here? So there's been times I've been triple booked for events that I've had to, unfortunately, draw straws and say, all right, well, I have a friend that's I know would be good in your area. Here you go. So it's always something on the go.
When you're at an event, can you talk a little more about that? Like, what does that look like, and what are you doing at these events?
Yeah. So usually I'm a big guy. I'm 6'6", 230. So usually I'm the muscle. But we'll get the details. We'll fly to the event, and normally it's a blank canvas. It's usually inside of a giant arena. It could be in a basketball area. It just depends. But from there, we get the blueprints, get our equipment that pretty much gets shipped in on pallets. From there, of course, we take inventory count, and then we look at the blueprint and start building it. And so, like when I do DreamHack, usually we have about 100 to 125 free play PCs. And then on the BYOC side, we usually at least set up the internet and the power drops and have about 2,500 seats that come in. And so, like I said, we're pretty much building, like I said, just a giant gaming arena that we're going to, have there for 3 days and then break it down within 6 hours after the show ends.
So when you have these events, what is your strategy to get the word out?
So usually when it comes to events, whether it's big or small, I always use social media sites, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook groups, stuff like that. And pretty much if you're wanting to attract somebody, it's kind of the sell this pin within 30 seconds. They want to see the graphic. They want to know what they're doing and what the prize pool is. And if they're interested, then you provide a link. It's whenever there's a blank canvas and no one really wants to look at it. You know, gamers, we don't want to read stuff. We want to see what's in front of us. But that's honestly it. I always try to advertise at least minimum a month and a half before the big show starts. So that allows people to take off work, get their teams built if it's a team sport. Just like I said, getting them the attention, because it's like I said, again, normal sports, you can't say, hey, we have the Thunder NBA game tomorrow. You know, here's tickets for sale. People are like, oh, crap, I didn't know there's a game coming. So advertisement is always key, especially way ahead of time.
So your all the business, all that you're doing is around the technology side. So what do you say, what have changed in their technology side, and what's the technology we're currently changing?
Right. So on the technology side, it's actually nice to see that a lot of these games have went to PC, so it's a cross-platform. And like I said, it doesn't take away if there's this Xbox player or a PlayStation player. Now they can plug their stuff in and play all together on the area. So it's nice to see how the transition has went from just a console to, like I said, a multiple console import thing. The only times that I see a downer, which is not really that, is just Smash Bros or a Nintendo Switch type game, because again, it's strictly on that. But besides that, the technology from not only the players playing, but also now when it comes to production, back in the day we had to pretty much use like a little small capture card or record it somehow. Well, now we use vMix. We use a lot of variables to make sure that the audio is crisp, that we can change multiple camera angles at the best time for production. So just seeing the technology grow into where we're at now compared to, you having to have one headset off and talk to your friend saying, hey, he's over here. Now you're on Astro Mix Amps and there's clear comms and you don't have to worry about, taking it off the talk. So it's nice to have a good focus point that doesn't distract the player or the worker.
So what is the role of artificial intelligence and machine learning in your business, if at all?
So right now, most of the AI stuff I've noticed has been on Discord for like bots and just trying to get things filled out. So honestly, the AI aspect, at least in esports, hasn't been too far into it. I know they're talking about getting, like I said, artificial intelligence involved, whether it could be, let's just say a virtual casting script for someone to, create. You'd be like, all right, well, I'm doing this charity over here, what's some, bigger words than what I would normally use. And then of course it would create it and you just read the script off. But so far it hasn't developed too far into esports, at least from what I've seen.
So what about VR with esports?
So VR, usually it's a lot of free play. Now there is some different VR aspects that people are getting into for instance, like, first person shooter, stuff like that. And so I think it'd be a great aspect to bring it in for certain titles, because it does now revolve more on the player. Are you agile? Are you flexible? If you have to run, et cetera, et cetera. Because I know there's a place down in Texas I went to. It's mainly a workout area, but they had 4 pods that had a giant octagon that you can strap yourself in and move 360. And yeah, you literally had to run to shoot zombies. And I was like, oh, I've got this. I didn't realize I was so out of shape until after I played that game. But I think adding VR from a free play to a competitive based on different titles would be an amazing thing, just because it allows the player to be actually more hands-on than just a controller in their hand.
I think VR from that standpoint can be good because it can give you also a workout while you're gaming and maybe even get professional athletes more involved.
Oh, I definitely think it would. I have actually done some research just looking online that I've noticed a bunch of hospitals are actually starting to use VR for people that might have, whether woken up from a coma or had a surgery and they can't move. This helps them at least engage their muscles. Like I've had a back surgery myself, so I understand completely how it is to go from, fresh body to cut open to try to get back to fresh body. So having the VR as a physical motivator to help people out, I think it's definitely a win-win for that.
So what qualities do you think separate somebody that's very successful in esports versus people who aren't?
So a lot of it comes down to, honestly, just your mental capacity. Because don't get me wrong, esports, just like anything else, is stressful. I mean, I've got gray in my beard from from esports, same as top of my head. But the main factor is always stay professional. Because I have noticed, I wouldn't say higher ups, but people that have been in this industry, they've gotten to the point where, oh, well, I've been in this long. It doesn't matter what you say. I'm going to do it my way. That's not always the case, because at the end of the day, the customer is who is pretty much helping pay our bills. And so if you upset a customer because you didn't want to do just let's say climbing underneath the desk to fix a cable, you're going to lose that. So that's why I always tell people whenever I'm at an esports event, they're family to me. It doesn't even matter if it's my area or not. If they need help, I'm going to try to find somebody like that. And that's where a lot of these higher ups that get in this area forget where they started from, which we've all started from the bottom, and that's how we should always keep our mindset.
What would you say is your biggest challenge right now in your business?
The biggest challenge, like you kind of mentioned, honestly, is sponsors nowadays. Because yes, a lot of sponsors can be out there, but they want a good, return of interest. And unless they see those numbers of a good return of interest, they're unfortunately probably going to pass. That's why I always tell people create a pitch deck, show them what you've done, what you're wanting, and what they can get out of it. I know a lot of these newer grassroots, they just do what we call pen and paper. They can go on Battlefy, start GG, and create a bracket. But if they were actually to have production with commercials and streaming, they would probably get more of the sponsorship now, because they can play the ads. They can get people engaged to go to, like I said, a possible site for foot traffic. And that's like, so that's kind of like the gray area, honestly.
So for in-person events per se, the event probably wouldn't even happen if there weren't sponsors, or do you charge enough to make it like, pay for, like, what does that look like?
So honestly, it depends on the size of the event you want, the titles that you're doing, because you can, let's just say if I wanted to host a $5,000 Call of Duty tournament here and it comes out of my pocket, from there, I have to figure out, all right, what is the venue going to cost? What equipment do I need? If I'm doing production, all that stuff from there. You can do ticket sales, but you're going to have to, like I said, make sure that the amount of equipment you have can handle that much of a player load if you're just wanting to get your money back from entrance. If not, then honestly, your best bet is you have to have some kind of merch to sell or sell booth space. So you have to somehow line up all your math to make sure that if you're just doing ticket sales, it equivalates to what you have, because no gamer wants to go to an arena for, let's just say $5,000, pay $400, and then they have to wait, 8 hours to play again. That's just going to burn their bridges real quick.
You want to make sure that, it's a good flow, and that's your point, that if they're spending whatever amount, they can win way more.
Yeah, I always tell people that are wanting to host an event, if you're looking at prize pool, as much as you want to charge a lot to make a lot more, that's going to, like I said, burn bridges. So what I always do is the 10-10 rule. So if you're paying $10 to enter, all right, your prize pool is $100. If you give me, 100, then I'm going to do 1,000 based on that. So it just depends on what I can do and where I know I can base out of. So let's just say if a prize pool is 1,000, I myself plan on maybe making, 500 out of all the ticket sales after it goes to prize pool, because, like I said, I have to get hotels, stuff like that. So as long as I'm a little above normal, that's what gamers appreciate. But if you're like, hey guys, prize pool is $10,000, but I'm walking away with 30,000, they're not going to like that very much.
So from that standpoint, how do you balance that? Because obviously, like, listen, like, your time is valuable. Like, you're going out there, this is your job. So how do you balance that, charging enough and also being respectful to the gaming community?
So what I usually do is I try to do my research around these different states. Like I have kids all the time on my Twitter saying, hey, come to this, blah, blah, blah. So, all right, I try to figure out, all right, what's it going to cost for me to get out there? What's a hotel going to cost? Food. All right. Does the venue have the gear? And if they do they also sell food? Because I know if we make the gamers not allowed to bring in outside food, clearly they're going to purchase it at the arena, which means more money in their pocket. So I always try to look at all the different statistics to figure out what is the best way to break down, like you said, to make sure my time is valuable. Because if I'm losing money, I mean, it's the gamers had fun, but I didn't, So that's honestly, there's just a lot of math and homework behind it. No different than if you're going, like we said earlier, to an arena, you got to have a blueprint of what you have to build it. Because if you don't build it, you're just wasting time and space.
What's the coolest place that you've been to host an event?
Oh man, I mean, I've been to a lot. I do like Atlanta, Georgia when we do DreamHack. That's always a beautiful arena. I know I'll be going back to Vegas this year for TwitchCon to work it there. From a small grassroots points, one of the areas actually back home in Oklahoma and Tulsa, it was called Rewind. Whenever they were open, they had a 2-story area. So the bottom, what we called the pit, had about 32 PCs, had a bunch of like Xbox for people to free play, but then main stage was literally above, and it had an open glass where people can look over and watch. And yeah, it was pretty much, like I said, our area where our casters got to hang out. So I like the 2-tier or the main stage, as we call it, because of a lot of arenas, in a basketball area, that they'll have a main stage, but it's maybe lifted 3 foot off the ground. This was an actual area where you'd be like, oh my God, that's so cool to look at,
Awesome. So what's the top priority for your business right now?
My top priority, honestly, is I want to make sure, like I said, the gamers have a good chance to grow into something more if that's what they want. I mean, this could just be a one and done. They just want to go have fun. But my thing is to make sure that our gamers, because that's where I started from, is always taken care of, whether it's a mental aspect, whether that's, hey, are you doing good today, buddy? Like whenever I did the Call of Duty event down there, I was actually I was in charge of beanbags. So basically I was just picking random fans just to come have fun and whatnot, which I didn't mind. But there was one of the members that I guess wasn't drinking and he got overheated, was getting sick. So I made sure he had water, he had snacks, just because, like I said, and I made a bondship out of it. And to this day on Twitter, he still talks. Like if I say, hey, I have an event here, he tags me and be like, this guy will take care of you left and right. He didn't even know me. And, he made sure that I was healthy. And so that's my thing, is I want to make sure our customers are always taken care of, no matter what, where, how, why.
When it comes to the gaming community and what you're doing, are you looking at all international? Have you traveled like outside the country? What does that look like for you?
So I have done international gigs. Generally, whenever international gigs are available, they always, of course, try to save money because it's, flights are expensive going that way to find locals. But if they can't find it, then usually what they'll do is they'll reach out to us in different Discords and say, hey, I'm needing XYZ for this area, who's available. Then, of course, they'll scan the candidates to see. Or, for instance, like I said, with TwitchCon coming up, my lead was actually reached out and said, hey, do you want to work this? I'm like, yeah, sure. I appreciate the opportunity. And he's like, well, it wasn't me. It was another worker or another lead that loved me and wanted me to come out there with them. And so when it comes to that, yeah, I wouldn't say they play favorites. Sometimes they do, but it honestly just depends on location and qualities of what they need of said person.
Awesome. So what is the one biggest piece of advice that you wish you knew before you started this journey?
Honestly, like I said, growing up, I just thought it was just people having fun gaming and stuff. But my one advice is, no matter how many times you may apply to get a job, you're going to be turned down. I've been turned down by Blizzard. I've been turned down by Call of Duty, but then I've also got jobs by them. It's a constant back and forth flow. But the main thing is always don't give up, follow your passion if that's what you want. And there has been times whenever I started, I spent my own money to, like I said, do an event just as a volunteer. And then from there, it picked up. Like my first time to ever work with DreamHack, I did an event in Michigan. It was called Gamers for Giving. I spent $300 to fly out. They got me a hotel. They fed me. Well, I didn't know it, but I was working with a producer from DreamHack, and he liked how I was interactive with everybody. He's like, hey, let me get you down here in Dallas. And the Dallas gig, it didn't pay much. It was like $300, but now I make $3,000. So I'm just saying, don't ever give up in case you ever get turned down. Try your best. And even if it is a volunteer thing, make sure you're with people who care about you, that at least want to say, thank you for being here. Let me get you something in return.
Awesome. So if somebody watching this wanted to reach out to you, what's the best way for somebody to get in contact with you?
I mean, honestly, there's everything from Facebook to Discord, all that stuff like that. If you're on Facebook, it's literally Johnny Ryan Weaver. If you're on Twitter, it's Icy Chiller 54. And if you're on Discord, honestly, if you type in Icy Chiller, you'll find me on there as well. So I mean, I'm available any which way. And of course, you can also share my email if you put this in there and whatnot, which I don't mind one bit.
Sure, yeah. Like if you want to share it, go for it.
Yeah, it's honestly just icychiller@att.net. That's it.
Awesome. Well, Johnny, thank you so much for your time. We're rooting for you. Continued success for you and for your business.
No, hey, I appreciate the opportunity. And like I said, if you guys have any questions or if you're in the area, let me know. I'll get you guys some free tickets to an event.
That was great. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys. Appreciate y'all.
Thanks. All right. Bye.
All right, bye.